This podcast is brought to you by sarahraven.com, which is home to everything you need for a truly beautiful and productive garden. You'll also find great and essential gardening kit and stylish, lovely things to have in your house to bring the outside indoors, all inspired by the garden and the house being tied together. There's also plenty of garden inspiration, how-to videos and specialist growing guides, so head over to sarahraven.com today to discover even more. Welcome to Grow, Cook, Eat, Arrange, the podcast of me, Sarah Raven. And today I'm actually quite rarely these days, but on my own. And that's because I really wanted to talk in detail about veg growing, actually, and maybe a few recipes chucked in there at the same time, because I've had a few requests from people saying, Sarah, you don't talk enough about food anymore. So yes, this is a veg one. And the thing is, what I find teaching how to grow veg, particularly to beginners, and also growing veg myself, is that the garden, it can feel really overwhelming. How on earth do you know where to start if you're new to veg growing? Well, I would say the first thing is to think of the year in two chunks, 2 6-month chunks. And I tend to think of it as April to August and August to April. And that in a way is because it's easy to remember the A's, but also it does kind of divide down into that, because April to August, you are pretty much growing the tender edibles, tomatoes, aubergines, chilies, courgettes, beans, etc. To be honest, you sow tomatoes in February or March, but you sow beans in March or April. But April is the last kickoff, because you could go to the local garden centre or go online and you could order seedlings of this stuff. But the point is, by end of April, beginning of May, you are planting this stuff either into a greenhouse or into a garden once your frosts are over. And it's that tender stuff that can't go out until the frosts are finished. And we had a very late frost this year, first week of May. And so that's why kind of April to August works. And then, of course, there is another changeover once they're beginning to come to an end. And outside in the garden, that's normally September. In the greenhouse, you could extend that to kind of October with tomatoes, aubergines, chilies, etc. But we do find things begin to tail off a bit. And so then is when you need to think of sowing for the autumn, winter and early spring crops. And that is honestly, ideally, before August ends, or certainly by the middle of September. And that's why April to August, think of those Mediterranean-y tender edibles, and August to April, think of the hardies. Now, this is where I really want to kind of hammer home what we've learnt here over the last 30 odd years of growing. And it is that there are genuinely as many things that grow happily under the grey skies of a UK winter as there are that grow in the sunny summer. And we tend to think, the allotment's burgeoning and people's veg gardens are burgeoning with produce over the summer, and they are rather lean over the winter. But I genuinely promise there are just as many, there's such a big range of things that really like it cold, grey and wet, and there will take less looking after because you don't need to water, there aren't slugs and snails around to nearly the same degree, there's no flea beetle, it all becomes easier. So August to April is genuinely the time of year where we pick just as much, if not more, from the garden in terms of kilos, and even more from the greenhouse in terms of kilos. August to April, greater volume than April to August. And I can just only promise you that. There isn't a day when I don't go into the greenhouse twice a day maybe, or outside, depending on how harsh it's been, and pick supper and lunch. So just remember that there are things that you can sow right now, last week of August, first half of September, that really will give you food that is utterly delicious to eat right the way through until next April. So what are they? Well, I can't give you every single one that we're sowing here right now, but I thought I would pick my top 12. And they are really in sort of 4 categories. The first category is salad. The second category is herbs. The third category is leafy greens. And the fourth category is what I've sort of written down as other successes that we have found slightly randomly have done well for us from sowing in the next 3 weeks and for us cropping right the way through until next April. So the first is the salads, and I had to really nail it down to just 4 crops, which I would sort of live or die by, really. And the first is a lettuce green oak leaf, or if you prefer slightly crunchier, ciabatta, which is like the bread, but it's got an I in the middle, ciabatta. And that is a loose leaf, continental loose leaf lettuce variety, but it's completely hardy. And we had huge success with this over the winter, both the red oak leaf and the ciabatta. And the second is one that I've gone on about almost too much, but the merveille de 4 saisons, the marvel of 4 seasons. And again, really hardy, really fabulous, prefers it cold to hot, doesn't bolt in the winter, is very slug resistant. It's just marvelous. The next 2 are both to give you punch and extra flavor through your lettuce salad. And that is salad rocket. So I would go for one like dentata probably. And you could do wild rocket too, but that is actually heat tolerant. So I tend to do that in the April to August time. So salad rocket. And then the final one would be a mustard like red frills. And red frills tastes of new potatoes. And I have talked about that before here, so I won't bang on about it. But all 4 of those, the lettuces of the loose leaf lettuce types, the round lettuce, merveille de 4 saisons, salad rocket, mustard red frills, or a similar mustard, are all completely hardy. You could add in Mitsuna, but that would be 5, and I only want to give you 12. And so that would take up too much for salad. And all of those have survived here under snow, genuinely, and down to -7 in a frost. So I promise that they are tried and tested, and they are really, really worth it. And if you have a greenhouse or a cold frame, use it, or a sheltered raised bed. But if not, they are still well worth growing. But they need sowing soon. And that is the key thing. Don't leave it until October when your tomatoes are coming out, or your courgettes have gone over, or your runner beans, to sow then. Sow now into gutter pipes or into jiffies, or even into just seed trays, and then prick them out, because you really need to get going with germination now so that they are then ready to go out into the garden as you get your gaps. So that's why it's April to August and August to April, because of the NB sowing wise. Okay. So second group are the herbs. And there are plenty of hardy herbs. Now, obviously, I'm not talking things like basil and oregano, which are the Mediterranean tender stuff, but there are 3 that we grow here every year that are completely hardy. But I'm only allowing myself 2 in this category, because otherwise I'm going to get up to 14. But the most important of all that I would be bereft without, completely hardy, is parsley giant of Napoli. So it's the large leaf parsley, flat leaf parsley, absolutely fantastic. And we genuinely grow that outside and in the greenhouse all the way through the winter, and pick it from both. Now, the other one, the next one, number 6, is chervil. Chervil won't even germinate in the hot and dry. It just doesn't. It goes into a dormant phase. It just doesn't germinate. Whereas it will germinate readily, and it actually self-seeds in our greenhouse here as soon as it gets grey and cold and wet. And it's obviously not wet in the greenhouse, but it's when the temperatures change, it breaks its dormancy and off it goes. And it is a really lovely aniseedy herb. The French use it very, very widely in an omelette, fine herbe. And we use it a lot here in salad dressings to give a kind of lovely aniseedy flavour. And we also use it a lot. I mean, I just add it as one of the many, many leaves to a bowl of salad. And I always think herbs just topped off. So pick your salad of your lettuce, ciabatta, and red oak leaf, the merveille de 4 saisons, salad rocket, mustard red frills. And then I would go to my chervil and parsley and just pick individual leaves that then go over the bowl. And then I might even pick an edible flower, and that could be a viola. as we go into the winter, or one of the polyanthus families. So I'm not going to allow my number 7 because that's coriander, but I don't have room for it. But it is better grown in the shoulders of the month. So sow it in August for September growing, or sow it in February for March, April, May growing. The third category are the leafy greens. And the leafy greens are super important because they give you bulk. And this is where, kilo by kilo, we definitely harvest more through the winter than we do in the April to August season. And I have various that are just absolutely key to me here. Kale is one of my very, very favourite. Completely hardy, completely durable, prefers it cold, wet and grey to hot and dry. The flavour is better in the winter. And I'm sure many of you will have heard me talk about my wilted kale salad, but it's one of the most delicious salads for the sort of cooler months from autumn until spring. And it's 2 tablespoons of tahini, ideally the sort of slightly runny Palestinian kind, 1 tablespoon of soy sauce, 1 tablespoon of olive oil, the juice and zest of a lemon. Stir it all together. If it gets claggy because the lemon makes the tahini seize, then you can either add some Greek yogurt or literally a tablespoon of water, and then massage that into the de-stemmed kale, and massage just like washing your hair for a good 2 to 3 minutes, and it will wilt the kale down. Top it with toasted pumpkin seeds and perhaps some pomegranate seeds and an avocado, and you've got a lunch for a king or queen, and it's absolutely delicious. And we use any of our kales for that, but particularly the Whopper red ball kale, which is the one we grow most of here. And when is the time to sow that? Now. And it's almost on the verge of getting too late, but it's not yet too late. So that would be my number 7. My number 8 would be a spinach, and either Madania or Renegade are both really hardy and have done very well for us here, both outside and in the greenhouse. And we pick that pretty much all winter. And if you're getting almost more leaves than you can eat, I literally blanch it in a tiny bit of water and then let it cool a bit, and then squeeze out every last drop of water if I can, and freeze it in little nuggets, little sort of walnut-sized nuggets. And I can use that for an omelette or for having with spinach. And of course, I'm sure lots of you know, but you can't absorb the iron in spinach without oils. It helps with absorption, transforms absorption. So if you're having scrambled egg, and to absorb the choline and the nutrition in the egg, you need the spinach, and to absorb the iron in the spinach, you need the egg. So they have a symbiotic nutritional relationship, which is why traditionally they're often served. Eggs Benedict, etc. Or rather, is it eggs royal? I never remember which. And so then my next one would be chard, and I've banged on about chard being my desert island vegetable because there isn't a day I don't pick chard. People don't like it because they say it's more bitter than spinach, but I find in a bechamel sauce or in a creme fraiche pasta sauce with lots and lots of nutmeg and parmesan and a little bit of chili flake, there is nothing better, and perhaps some lemon zest. Terribly easy, but you do want to remove the stem from the green. I do that with a sharp knife, just a paring knife, just straight down the stem, the chunky stem, take the green off, and then chop the stem down into little sort of ribbons or little chunks. Blanch that for 3 or 4 minutes, or boil it for 3 or 4 minutes before you put the leaves over the top, and then drain it again, like the spinach, really carefully, getting all the water out, and then put it either in a bechamel, so flour, butter, water, not water, milk, lots of nutmeg, or if you want it even simpler, then just do creme fraiche, nutmeg, a little bit of chili, as I say, and perhaps some lemon zest, and that will make a most delicious pasta sauce with parmesan. Other random successes that we've had for the August to April season, we had real success last winter with carrot tape. So between our crops of ranunculus in the greenhouse, we just unrolled Nantes carrot tape, and it took ages, but it didn't matter. So in they went in September as the tomatoes were coming out in some areas, and certainly the courgettes, and we unrolled the carrot tape, and we started harvesting that. It was in May that they really came through, But boy, oh boy, were they delicious. And we had done nothing to them. Obviously no carrot fly because they're inside, but I will definitely do this under a plastic tunnel outside as well as an experiment. So unrolling in October and harvesting in May, utterly wonderful sweet carrots. And another tip with that is that we have a big plastic container of water in the fridge. So keeping it cold, we change the water twice a week. And we've actually stored those in there now for over a month. And they still come out. I had them over the weekend, crunchy and sweet and as perfect as anything. So that's a really good tip for storing your own carrots. And they haven't rotted at all. It's absolutely amazing. I really thought they would. Or you could wrap them in a tea towel and just keep dampening the tea towel every few days in the fridge. The other, number 11, success is pea Nairobi, and I discovered this over lockdown. This is the sweetest of any sugar snap ever. Absolutely delicious. You hardly need to string them, and you just pop them in, and they burst. The peas burst out, and the crunchy pods, absolutely delicious. And again, put those in as soon as your tomatoes come out, so September, October. Just direct sow some pea Nairobi up some silver birch sticks or bamboo canes with some jute netting and just leave them and just ignore them. And you'll think, oh no, they haven't worked. But then you will be eating those again in May. And so I just had that chance sort of discovery in the Christmas lockdown that we had, where I just was busy in there and just chucked them in the autumn, and we were eating them just so deliciously all the way through the spring. Final one, number 12, bulb fennel, Florence fennel. It bolts very readily if you sow it in a sort of normal sowing time. So if you sow it March or April, really quite often, you won't get the lovely, juicy white bulbs. They tend to bolt rather than bulb. Whereas I find that if I sow that in September, so it's just starting to bulb as the temperatures get cold, we get really juicy, massive, massive bulbs. And if you're growing it outside, put it under a plastic cloche or some sort of protection. But if you've got a greenhouse, oh boy, it's a really good use of a greenhouse, because you'll be eating the most plump, tender and delicious bulb fennel in February and March. So I hope that helps you to kind of really think of using your veg garden, veg space, greenhouse, cold frame, whatever, 12 months round. So number 1, 2, 3 and 4 are salads. Number 5 and 6 are herbs. Number 7, 8 and 9 are leafy greens. 10, 11 and 12 are other random successes. So carrot, tape, pea Nairobi and bulb or Florence fennel. I hope that was helpful. Thanks very much for listening to me talking about my favourite veg for sowing now to keep eating all the way through winter. Next week, I'm joined by a heroine of mine, really, Laura Lee, who is head of the Maggie Centres and the charity looking after people creating gardens and spaces for people with cancer to find a harbour and a place of kind of rest and peace and advice and life skills, really. And I'm just couldn't be looking forward to chatting to her more. So see you then. You can find more information, photos and advice sheets on all the plants and recipes we talk about on this podcast by heading to the show notes or at sarahraven.com/podcast.